Greetings and happy Friday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show, live and on demand here on BlazeTV, radio, and podcast. Yes, I am that man playing Galaga. Todd is here with me, as is Aaron McIntyre. Our good friend Denise McAllister will be joining us here momentarily for the Deace Group. 888-900-3393. That's how you can call the show. You can also email the program, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter, @Steve Deace Show, over on Facebook as well, which I already said that. On Parler, @Steve Deace. Our new YouTube channel, youtube.com/Steve Deace. And then finally, my next book drops December the 15th. It's the novella sequel to my book that's now being turned into a movie, A Nefarious Plot. It's called A Nefarious Carol. And if you want to make sure you get your copy, my kids want you to make sure that you get your copy. That's right. They are expecting an extra good Christmas this year. And frankly, that's up to all of you. I've already done my part. Now you have to do yours. All right, get your pre-orders in right now over at Amazon.com. It comes in December the 15th, just in time for Christmas. Get your copy now and get my kids a good Christmas over at Amazon.com. I'm working on soft selling it a little bit more. How'd I do this time?
Is that what you call it when you keep talking about your kids and Christmas 5 times? I think you just turn the volume up to 11.
I mean, everybody else manipulates their own kids for their own gain, right? I mean,
I've told you,
is that okay now?
And I've told you, I'm about your coattails. My kids are about your coattails too.
There you go.
I get it. I get it.
All right.
I just saw the latest IHME model, and it said that we're going to have 5,000 bad Christmases if you don't buy Steve's
yes.
book.
And everyone knows you can trust the IHME model. Everyone knows that. Yes, indeed. All right, coming up here on a Friday, of course, regular order of business. We'll get to Feedback Friday next hour. This is when we find out what you think about what we think. But we begin, as always, with the Deace Group. Your weekly look at the week that was, brought to you by realestateagentsitrust.com. If you are going into an uncertain time in the real estate market, there, I got it in early today. Yes, indeed. These are unprecedented times even. I added a double down for you. Unprecedented times in the real estate market and in all markets. Make sure you go in with an agent that you can find. Now, where would you find such a person? Well, probably not on their websites. You know, it doesn't mean everything they say on their websites is a lie. It just means every liar lies on their website. No one goes on their website and says, you can't trust me. No one says that. No one goes on their website and says, I got to tell you, man, if I don't see that there's a chance to sell your house in 30 days or less, I'm just going to kind of slow burn you. Nobody does that, all right? But where would you go to find a place where agents around the country are vetted before they're listed and recommended? Well, the name kind of says it all. You can go to realestateagentsitrust.com. Again, check out the website, realestateagentsitrust.com. Let's get to issue 1, bleep, Democrats say.
Holy f***ing shit, you guys! I'm driving your car, but I just got a notification that Ruth Bader Ginsburg died!
We're going to have to blow up the entire system. And you know what we're going to have to do?
No, I don't know.
You know what we're going to... Yes,
Yeah.
what you're going to have to do?
You just got to vote.
Honestly, from what your closing argument is, you're going to have to get rid of the Electoral College.
Do you say Democrats, if they get back the Senate in this election in November, should then move to expand the Supreme Court?
Are you in favor of trying to expand the numbers of justices on the Supreme Court?
Like the idea of eliminating the filibuster. Should they do that?
As you know, some Democrats are openly threatening to try to pack the Supreme Court with additional justices. Would you agree with that?
But to be clear, you're not taking any arrows out of your quiver. You're not ruling anything out.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Mitch McConnell, we know who this man is. We know who this man is. This is a man who does not care about a dying woman's final wish.
But he's trying to have the Constitution of the United States swallow Clorox. And
Ruth! You just had to make it to 2021!
Or they've developed enough community immunity that they're no longer having the pandemic because they have enough immunity in New York City to actually stop.
I challenge that, Senator, because I want to, please, sir, I would like to be able to do this because this happens with Senator Rand all the time. You were not listening to what the director of the CDC said.
But I can't believe we're still talking about herd immunity, given everything doctors and public health experts have told us about how dangerous that idea is.
It's estimated that 200 million people have died, probably by the time I finish this talk.
I've become the type of person where I hope they all get it and die. I'm sorry, but that I am so frustrated and just I don't know what else to do. You can't argue with them. You can't talk sense into them. I said to somebody yesterday, I hope they all die before the election. That's the only saving hope I have right now.
I don't think I've heard of another Trump supporter being shot. So the what? He got shot. Is he alive?
I believe he died.
Tough luck. Don't be a Trump supporter in Portland.
Could this year get any worse?
America, I pledge allegiance to the United States of America. One nation, indivisible, under God, for real.
All right, first question. Goodness. What was the craziest of the cray-cray this week? Denise, you get to go first as the guest. Go ahead.
Well, it has to be that crazy woman in the car. I mean, what a Karen. I mean, just that, I've seen that about the mask, about Ginsburg dying. These people are going crazy, and that is just a perfect example of it. And the fact that she filmed herself going crazy and thought it was a good thing to post this on the internet where everyone can mock her for going crazy, so it shows just how crazy she really is.
I'm glad you made that point. We talked about that earlier this week, Todd. The fact that people think posting this is good for them, that there's a market for this, that there's an audience that will affirm this. Yeah, I feel that way too, is probably the most disturbing part of videos like that. It's not just people losing their feces. It's the fact that they think, well, I've got to make sure I post this on social media right away. That's the part about it that that's deep psychosis level there. What about you?
But just a comment on that. You joke, you like me some me, but at the end of the day,
I don't like me that much. I'll tell you that.
Well, you have a Lord and Savior who isn't you. That's the problem. Her Lord and Savior is her. That's why she shows herself. She's up on the cross. That's it.
Dude.
That's it.
I kind of feel like we need to shut the show down right now. That'll preach. That will preach.
But that's not my favorite.
All right, go ahead.
My favorite is actually, it's understated. And it relates to Fauci going back and forth with Rand Paul. But it's Willie Geist. The invincible ignorance of every expert class about herd immunity, how dangerous it is. And he's heard it from many medical professionals, but he's a reporter. So he's supposed to be doing legwork and not just taking one scientist's word for it, one doctor's word for it. I can't. Steve has mentioned this before, but again, my background in this before coronavirus and listen, all of mankind would be dead without herd immunity. Do you not understand? We haven't had vaccines for that long. And before that, and yes, there were grotesque black plagues, but there were all manner of disease. Mankind did not die out because this human body is really a remarkable machine. And you guys simply pretend this is what the magical thinking of vaccination has done in a very short time, relatively speaking. You have managed to convince yourself that this would be nothing but a pile of ash were it not for vaccines. That is flat earthism. And it's apparently invincible flat earthism because we're 6 months into this, Steve.
Listen, I'm pro-vaccine. Everything you just said is 100% correct. We didn't have antibiotics, guys. I mean, was it 1921, 1925 when Fleming discovered the penicillin mold? Okay. And then he spent like the next 10 years trying to convince the scientific community that it wasn't a quack. I mean, guys, we didn't have vaccines until the mid-20th century. We had humanity long before the mid-20th century. What did we do? What did we do with smallpox for centuries? What did we do? What did we do with the Black Plague? mean, what did we do with every outbreak for thousands and thousands of years? So you're exactly correct about that.
And what everything else I said, and thank you for letting me go on a rant, but how long have they been staring or not willing to stare that graph of Sweden in the face? It's there.
It's the same people that don't want to, that just stare chromosomes in the face and don't care.
Yes,
it's the same people that stare at a child in utero. All right.
Yes, that's exactly right.
And don't care. I don't care because I only care about me. This goes back to the point you made about the video. I'm what counts.
Yep.
I'm what matters. And so anything that doesn't affirm me and what I think or want in a given time, we get our cognitive dissonance on hardcore, man. It's a mosh pit of cognitive dissonance. That's what most of American media is. A mosh pit of cognitive dissonance. That's what it is. Aaron.
I echo everything that's been said so far. One brief comment on the woman in the car. Probably the most disturbing part of that video, honestly, and it hasn't been mentioned yet, is the fact that she's not wearing a mask in her car.
Well played.
The Willie Geist thing, if you believe that herd immunity is a dangerous strategy, your very presence in anywhere that other humans could come into contact with you or come into contact with fomites, which you've touched, you are a hypocrite. If you believe that herd immunity is a dangerous strategy, Willie Geist needs to live in a bubble for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Unless he.
By the way, what do vaccines? What are they here to get us to?
Magical. I'm sorry. Herd immunity.
Yeah. Well, now Fauci wants to call it umbrella immunity.
Umbrella of immunity.
Okay. Because they want to depart from that term, but that's what vaccination does. As I've explained to you a million times, we vaccinate people in order to get to herd immunity.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
And speaking of Fauci, that was probably my favorite ride. And of course, there's not enough room to watch that entire exchange. But you look at his body language.
Yeah, he's like shaking.
At the end of that clip, he is shaking. He is angry. And that is the heart of the progressive right there, of the capital P progressive, of the leftist. Here's the thing. That girl, she probably doesn't look maybe in her mid-20s, maybe early 30s. That girl and Fauci, at their heart, they're basically the same person. Any pushback, anything that tells you that your reality, that your idol is being threatened, is maybe being told that it's wrong, it's just rage. Cannot handle it. Cannot handle being questioned physically. You look at Fauci's body language. It was not in the clip there, but you watch that entire exchange. At the end, he's shaking. You look at that woman
Senator
in the
Rand.
car. Yes, Senator Rand.
Yeah.
You look at that woman in her car losing her mind that her idol of power, or that her whatever her idol is in that moment, probably herself, is being threatened. Her identity being threatened. It is an emotional reaction. And that is at the heart of every progressive.
And to get them to that point, that's why your book back here behind me, Never Accept Their Premise, is so important. Yes. You got to take them to that point.
On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the odds that Democrats won't try to cheat this election, and 10 being the odds Joe Biden drops at least, come on, man, at Tuesday's first presidential debate. Rate this week's level of total depravity, Aaron.
10.
Denise.
Oh, it's pushing way above 10.
I agree with Denise. Let's get to issue 2, the first presidential debate.
The term putting a lid on something is not frequently used in normal human-to-human vernacular, but recently it's been something a lot of blue checks on both sides of the Twitter aisle have been talking about. That's because for 8 days this month alone, the Joe Biden campaign has put a full lid on his campaign activities before noon. What that means is that for 8 days this month, Joe Biden and his entire campaign have stopped doing any campaigning whatsoever before noon, less than 2 months before the election. That's okay, though, because as the Daily Beast's Sam Stein pointed out this week, Biden is doing debate prep. That's why he's calling lids. It's not that complicated. The debates are indeed the next major milestone in the presidential calendar, as both Joe Biden and President Trump are expected to participate in the first presidential debate this Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's take a look back at both these candidates' most recent debate performances, starting with Joe Biden.
You can cut tax rates by 20% and still preserve these important preferences for middle-class taxpayers.
Not mathematically possible.
It is mathematically possible. It's been done before. It's precisely what we're proposing.
It has never been done before.
It's been done a couple of times, actually.
It has never been
Jack Kennedy
done
lowered
before.
tax rates, increased growth. Ronald Reagan.
Now you're Jack Kennedy.
And now Donald Trump.
She shouldn't be allowed to run. She's guilty of a very, very serious crime. She should not be allowed to run. And just in that respect, I say it's rigged. I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
Well,
okay?
Chris.
It's amazing when you look at that Biden tape, how much his mental capacity has obviously deteriorated when you look at that.
Can I add one thing to that? I agree with that point. I went back and I watched a lot of footage of that last debate performance, and it was still amazing, despite how much more cognitive ability he seemed to have then than he does now, how little substance he actually, it was just constantly interrupting poor Paul Ryan there.
Because, well, he knew he was up against a technocrat who was just going to get down into the weeds of details, and all he's got to do is look certain in calling and trolling him, and it worked. Yeah. All right, let's get to this. All right. If the election were today, and people had to make a call, this is what I believe the Electoral College map would look like. If it's deep blue, 80% odds or higher going Democrat. If it's deep red, 80% odds or higher, according to my ratings, going Republican. If it's light red, 60% odds or higher going Republican. If it's light blue, 60% odds or higher going Democrat. If it is really, really light blue, okay, like Nevada, 50-50 odds favoring Democrats. There's a story in Nevada to watch, and that is the casinos have been shut down almost most of this year, and they're way below capacity reopening now. There have been massive layoffs in that industry. Those are all union workers, a bunch of Democrat voters. And remember, that state was only decided by, 20,000 votes last time. So that's why I don't have Nevada as certain blue as other people do. If it's pink, it means, I think right now, 50-50, but if it had to vote, it would vote Republican. All right. So when you look at this map, the brown are places I just can't make a call. I think it's too close to call there, but I also think in Arizona, I just think is too close to call. The rest states up there, I just think that there's going to be massive amount of legal challenges there, and I cannot make a call based on what I know. If you look at Maine and Nebraska, remember they have those odd split districts, and I don't know who will win those other districts. That's why there's brown there. All right, so that's where I believe the map is right now, heading into these debates. If we had to go in, if people had to vote today, Trump would at least get 247 Electoral College votes. Biden would at least get 222. And then there would be war on the ground for the other 69. That's where I think the race is heading into the debates. So with that in mind, first question, Todd, goes to you. You absolutely guarantee blank will happen at Tuesday's first 2020 presidential debate.
Oh, I absolutely think Joe Biden is not going to rise to the challenge. I don't think there's a way he, on his own merits, can win. I think Donald Trump can lose if Donald Trump... You see, I'm not worried. Who cares? The lid on Biden really isn't the point. Of course, he's going in to do this. I'm fine with Donald Trump at this point putting a lid on whatever he's doing at noon and going into debate prep and saying mantras to himself like, I will be a grown-up, I will be a grown-up, which is not to say don't pick your moments. We talked about one possible one and saying, what's a woman? Things like that. But do not go in cavalierly like a guy like Obama did to Romney and took for granted and
got killed the first debate.
And if you can get killed just through your arrogance to a guy like Romney, listen, just please, Donald Trump, he can't beat you. You can only beat yourself. But that's my given. There's no way Biden will look to America like, wow, he's really got some game.
Denise, what do you think? What do you guarantee is going to happen Tuesday?
I think Joe Biden is going to say folks at least 25 times as he tries to convince America that Donald Trump is a racist and a sexist. So you're going to hear something along those lines. I think that I agree that he will not rise to the occasion. I think he will stumble a lot because he has in the past, even when he was more in his right mind. He just isn't technically able to give an argument or philosophically able to give an argument that's needed to be given about many of these issues. I think that he will stumble and get flustered and not be able to walk that path between clever repartee and making strong points. I think Trump will win as long as he doesn't defeat himself. And I agree with Todd in that. It really is his to win. He will only lose if he does things that just are stupid. If he pulls Twitter moments during the debate instead of being really thoughtful and hone in on really important moments that are coming and really prove that he's the man that needs to be in the White House and expose Biden for the progressive that he is and not make it always just personal and not make it always just about how inadequate he is or how silly he is. We'll see that for ourselves as he responds, but really hit home to how his views are contrary to America and our safety and our liberty. And we have to include safety there because people are concerned about that. I just want to make one point about your map. Living in North Carolina, I really think I would put that in light blue at this point. Unfortunately.
I disagree, but your opinion is duly noted.
I hope you're right.
Yeah, I disagree, but I think I get what the public numbers show, but the public numbers also way over represented what Hillary was going to do in North Carolina in 2016 as well. But I hear you. Aaron.
So the final Democrat primary debate was March 15th. That was their 11th debate, I believe. And that was the last time since the clip that I just showed you that Biden had debated just mano somebody else, and it was Bernie Sanders. Here's the difference, and I don't remember that debate very much because we were right in the throes of everything getting canceled. I don't know if you guys remember that debate whatsoever.
Yep. It was in Arizona, right?
It was supposed to be, but it was canceled.
Okay.
It was held at CNN's headquarters, I believe. But the point is that you look at Joe Biden, when he is challenged on his record from hostile questioners, he gets very, very, very testy very quickly. I highly doubt, and I cannot remember that debate, but I highly doubt that Bernie Sanders was up there asking about Hunter Biden. Trump is probably going to do that on Tuesday night, bringing that up, bringing that into the fold. How does Joe Biden respond to that? Because on its face, a mano debate where Joe Biden has spent the last 6 months essentially speaking off of a teleprompter, guys. Speaking off of a teleprompter. There's not going to be any teleprompters to help him at that debate. He's going to be going all off of the notes, and you have to arrange those notes as well. There's just going to be too many things going on for Joe Biden. So my lock for Tuesday night is that he is, within the first 5 minutes, he is going to get way off track, visibly so, and you are going to sense a feeling of uncomfortability within the first 5 to 10 minutes. Just uncomfortable watching that.
Back to what you were talking about, Denise, about the debate. What I hear you saying is you're kind of tying into an observation I've made for our audience for years, which is when elections are about issues, Republicans win, and when they're about personalities, Democrats win. And I think there's this notion that Trump has changed that, and he did not. If you look at the exit polls, the number one issue that drove Donald Trump to the general election is what we're going to talk about next segment: judicial nominations. That he made it very clear who he would appoint for justices, people that would overturn Roe. Right? He ran on issues. The stuff that didn't work, the lock her up chants at the rallies and that kind of stuff, that stuff actually didn't work. They tried that at all three of the debates. They tried this stunt where they brought out, that was Bannon's thing, they brought out the women of Bill Clinton. And it's terrible what's happened to those women, but it didn't move the needle at all. And coming out of those debates, the election was over. I mean, Trump's polling was bad. It was over. It was over. And what happened is they gave a lot of that stuff up and then just went to Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and then a little to Michigan. But they lived in those states and just ran populist issues into the ground, all right? And were just lived in those states. And then Jim Comey delivered his letter the week before the election that stopped Hillary's post-debate momentum. But that's the thing this is true even in the era of Donald Trump. The reason we're sitting here talking about suburban women voting for an Alzheimer's patient is because they're offended at his Twitter account. Let's just be honest about that. That's why. They're offended at these kinds of remarks. The personality stuff plays to a narrow base within the Republican base. It plays to no other base in the country. Every other base in the country is annoyed by it, doesn't like to see a president behave like that. And that's the only reason why, on top of handing the country over to Anthony Fauci for 4 months, which was a damnable decision, that's the only reason why a guy that got us the first increase in median household income in this country since the damn 60s is sitting here with a battle on his hands for re-elect in the first place. Is the stuff that the click conservatives people in our movement like the most turns off the most voters across the country.
Yeah, you're of course right, which is why I said if he can just be a grown-up. Honestly, Biden's, although he would not look lucid, his best version of crazy would be to bait Donald Trump into a debate that is nothing but a Twitter war with those two going back and forth.
I agree. If I were advising Joe Biden, I'd tell him right away, try to get Trump off his game. Hey, you know what? We're not doing that. If, you want to come at me, I'm insane. Let's do some push. Do your whole push-up irascible. Do it right now.
Exactly.
Get Trump off of issues right now. Set the tone from the very beginning. All right? Because then every time he just goes nuts the rest of the next 2 hours, you can just say, come on, man. That's what I would tell him to do. See, I don't think it's a lock whatsoever that Donald Trump's going to win on Tuesday. And I've been warning about this for weeks. When you put everything on one event and you at the same time tell your opponent they have no expectations at all, barely just breathe, that maybe it's the sports better in me. I've just seen too many lines that just look like they were automatic wins that turned out not to be.
Oh, you're right. We all agree on that. But it's Joe Biden just can't win it. Donald Trump can lose it, and he can lose it gloriously.
Yes, I like the way that you put that. Denise, I'll give you a minute here for the last word on this. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I also just want to say, there's a difference. We're not talking here about Donald Trump becoming blank and cardboard and not having a personality.
No, agreed.
He has a strong personality and a good personality and the kind of personality that we needed in the fight. When Donald Trump is fighting for issues, when he's fighting for America, when he's championing us, that's his strength. Yes. That's what we love. And his personality plays in that, in being a champion for something good. But it's when he becomes a fighter against things that are petty or personal,
trivial,
or you insulted my big hands or whatever. Yeah. These are the kind of things that detract, and we may laugh at them who are in his base, but it does offend. It's not necessary. So we want strong, explosive defender of our principles of liberty in America. Trump out there, as only he can do and has done in years. That's the man we want. We don't want petty. We want powerful.
That's perfectly said. Exit question quickly. If the impact Tuesday's debate will have on the outcome of the election in 39 days were an old school rap song, which old school rap song would it be? A, the Humpty Dance. Novelty, but no real substance. B, Can't Trust It. Nobody knows anything. Or C, Mama Said Knock You Out, which is kind of self-explanatory. Aaron.
Mama Said Knock You Out.
Todd.
Can't Trust It. We got this whole Supreme Court thing.
Denise.
Can't Trust It.
All right. It's Can't Trust It, guys.
Oh, trust it.
Trust it.
Sorry, homie.
Holy cow, you guys are middle-aged and white. Trust it. Okay? Dude, we were pretending to like this song in high school. Surely you remember it. All right? More of the Deace Group here in a moment. All right, back here on The Blaze, here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Todd and Aaron McIntyre, and our friend back here on a Friday for the Deace Group, the one and only Denise McAllister. Let's get to issue 3. From RBG to ABC or TBD.
The political world was rocked last Friday night when news broke that longtime Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg had passed away at the age of 87 after a long battle with numerous illnesses, including complications from pancreatic cancer. Naturally, the conversation quickly shifted to whom Trump would pick to replace Ginsburg and whether or not he should even do so. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell quickly pledged on Friday night that whomever Trump nominated would indeed receive a vote before the election. Trump's top choices for the empty seat quickly emerged as 11th Circuit Court of Appeals Judge Barbara LaGoya of Miami and 7th Circuit Court of Appeals Judge Amy Coney Barrett. After a week of speculation and mincing what records the two judges have, it's generally believed that Amy Coney Barrett will be Trump's choice. Trump is set to make his announcement on Saturday. The battle will then turn to the Senate, where it's unclear whether there will be hearings for whomever Trump chooses. McConnell stated earlier this week he has the votes to confirm the nominee. This week, even Rhino Senators Mitt Romney and Lisa Murkowski signaled that they're open to having a vote.
So this is the only topic I have set aside for this half of the conversation, because I think it has several different aspects that I want us to discuss. Let's go back a couple of steps, though, and let's just talk about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her legacy, because I think in my lifetime anyway, I wasn't around for Republican appointees who became lefties, but were really smart guys like Earl Warren, William Brennan, and they were lefties by the definition of the term in their day and age. They couldn't get nominated to the Supreme Court by a Democrat president today, okay? But those guys were really smart. I mean, I didn't agree with a lot of what they said, but they were really smart guys. A lot of what we see from lefty judges today are, I don't like what Trump tweeted, it's Elena Kagan who's a clown, all right? But Ruth was smart. Ruth was savvy. And I think she's the closest thing in my lifetime on the high court that the left has had to Antonin Scalia. And I think that's a key for the other three judges, because now, she's not going to be there to polish up their arguments for them, if you know what I'm saying. How big of a loss is she, number one, for the American left? And number two, how big of a moment is this opportunity to replace her for conservatives? Aaron, I'll start with you this time.
So I think maybe for the first time in my lifetime on the political landscape, and I say this very hesitantly because almost everything from a government and political standpoint has been less than stellar in terms of actually conserving the idea of America. All the movements, all of the flash and pans, all the elections that looked amazing didn't really turn out too much. But this is the first time when I can legitimately see that this could be ushering in a new reality for conservatism, or at least Americanism, in my lifetime. If Trump wins, and it's this even more so if Trump wins, because if Trump wins this election, he's going to be able to appoint probably 2, maybe 3 more justices. Can you imagine that? 6 justices in a 2-term president? But here's what I mean. Let's game plan this out for a little while. If Amy Coney Barrett ends up being the justice who flips the court and they are able to overturn something like Roe, one of two things will happen, or maybe both will happen. The issue of abortion will go back to the states, which it should. Well, it should be outlawed anywhere, but that it'll go back to the states. It'll go back to the states. The states with somewhat God-fearing populations will hopefully be able to outlaw the heinous practice of abortion once and for all in their states and their jurisdictions. That will happen in at least a few states. The other thing that could happen is that once the court flips and it's a majority of conservative constitutionalist justices, the left, the places that the left controls in America, what are they going to start doing? Are they going to just start following Supreme Court guidelines and rulings? No, they're going to reject judicial supremacy, which is what we've been saying and we've been wanting to have happen for how long now? Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean by this being a win-win. Either we get a majority Supreme Court and some big issues that could be coming down the pike will hopefully for once go conservatives' way. And if it doesn't, or if and when it does, if the left decides that they want to start ignoring them, then hey, they're giving conservatives cover to start ignoring cases that don't go against conservative values. So I think one way or another, this could be very well opening the door to something resembling a positive political and civic outcome for conservatives in the United States. All that is to say, it's a huge loss for the left to lose Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
That's excellent analysis. Denise, I was thinking the other day, trying to come up with, can I historically, let's say the nomination is Amy Coney Barrett, and looking at her judicial profile, I would say she is somewhere between Alito on the low end and a Clarence Thomas, from what I can see from her judicially. I think she's somewhere in that spectrum between those two. I can't think of historically in American history, and maybe I'm missing one. Would this be the widest ideological swing in a singular judicial nomination in American history? The swing from Ruth Bader Ginsburg to Amy Coney Barrett. You see what I'm saying? Where one judge is on the spectrum compared to the one they replaced. It would certainly be up there. What are your thoughts, Denise?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's why the cult of Ginsburg is getting louder and louder and more angry and having fits, like you saw that woman in the car. The swing is incredible. And it also shows the polarization of our country, how far we are apart on so many issues, that we really can't even find some kind of common ground on many of these issues. If she becomes the next justice, I mean, it will make a huge difference on the court. I don't know if her presence will result in sending Roe back to the courts. I mean, back to the states. I only because I don't have confidence in some of the other conservative judges that are up there. But she, on many, many issues, ACA, one of them, she'll have such a strong voice, and everyone knows this. And you will see a lot of talk now about women's issues. We're going to see more about the women's vote and what women think about her nomination, which ironically you would think women would be excited about a woman replacing a woman. But that doesn't matter when the woman to be replacing another woman is conservative, like Barrett is, and an original text interpreter of the Constitution, like she is. It doesn't matter. And so they're going to scare people. You're already seeing everything out there. Women, you're going to lose your health care. Millions are going to lose their health care. You're going to lose your rights as women if this woman is put onto the Supreme Court. So there's going to be an organizing and a ginning up of women's fears, which are already out there on high alert because of COVID. Women have gone completely, in general, insane during this time, and it's becoming more and more and more apparent. And so she's definitely a unique figure. I think that he will nominate her on Saturday. We need someone like her. We need someone strong like her as a woman, especially going against what Ginsburg stood for. So I look forward to this. And I agree with Aaron. This is a win-win for Republicans, despite the fact that it may cause divisions with women on our side. But women on our side need to wake up and realize what rights really are ours, what rights are being threatened, and stop thinking simply because, birth control and abortion and these kind of issues. There are many, many other issues that we as women need to fight for when it comes to liberty, and we need to wake up. Instead of catering to these women, we need to continue to push against them and push for what's true and keep a focus on the issues and let them know why this woman being nominated to the Supreme Court is so important.
Todd, good luck following those two. Go ahead.
Well, she's a loss, but setting aside what replaces her for a second, she's not as big of a loss as I think seems obvious here in the moment. And here's why. Listen, she could have guaranteed in her 70s that she was replaced by Obama. But see, this is the way of the left. They always go Icarus. They always fly too close to the sun. And now here we are, and it's nobody's fault but them. And see, and they have other ways. They'll move on to the next brand of crazy. Look at these same people, as Aaron said. Now we're talking about judicial supremacy, going wacky about court packing. Meanwhile, the entire left is justifying violence in the streets. We're in the middle of a civil war. They're just going to go to the next thing. So it isn't as big of a deal within how the left thinks about things. Now, in terms of how you replace it, that is entirely up to Donald Trump and Amy Coney Barrett, or perhaps somebody else. Like I said, if he goes, if Donald Trump gets this wrong and picks a male or a female version, it really doesn't matter, of Brett Kavanaugh, it's going to be a moot point. We're going to be talking back at this as we're the ones who lost, not them. I guarantee you that. And Amy Coney Barrett, along with being, I want her to be a Scalia and I want her to be a Thomas, but it's even harder. And it has to do with the things that Denise said. I mean, we're counting on people like her, to redefine femininity for daughters like mine and daughters like Steve, to look at, oh no, that's what a woman is. Of course you can be a pro at any number of things in life, but you don't hate being a woman. You enjoy being a woman. You show us what you are with the grace you carry with yourself. You love being a mom of 7. I mean, the bar is so high for what she's got to pull off, and we as a culture desperately need her to pull it off. So it could be earth-shattering in terms of what she accomplishes. It could be.
I really don't. And go ahead, Denise. I'll give you the last word. You got about a minute. Quickly, go ahead.
And that's why the left is going nuts and wanting to say and change the rules of the game by increasing the number of justices on the court. When they can't win within the system, they want to change the system or delegitimize the system. They want to wreck the system because they can't win within it. And that's why they're pushing toward this, because they know it's cataclysmic.
Yeah, you know me, man. I'm always hesitant to be optimistic on anything. I would be stunned if tomorrow he announces some kind of Brett Kavanaugh kind of judge. Like stunned. Like stunned.
Me too.
Like even in 2020 stunned. I mean, that would be dumber than handing...
Yes, it would.
You might as well nominate Anthony Fauci to the court. That'd be dumber than handing the country over to Fauci for 4 months, is how stupid that would be.
Yes, but you don't think it's impossible, do you?
I think it's pretty close to impossible.
I agree, but it's not. I wish I...
Okay. Exit question. Will President Trump announce Amy Coney Barrett as his choice to succeed Ruth Bader Ginsburg tomorrow? Aaron?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Denise?
Yes.
All right. Let's get to predictions. Aaron, you get to go first. Go ahead.
So my prediction is if there is not a second presidential debate after this first one, then there's going to be no vice presidential debate whatsoever. I think if this one goes off and there's an announcement somewhere down the line that Joe Biden's not going to do any more debates, there's not going to be any more debates. There's not going to be any whatsoever. I
think that's the other danger of putting so much on this. If Biden goes in there and it's lucid and he's got the whole media championing that he was lucid, then he'll just say, I don't have to show up again unless Trump releases his taxes or come up with some stupid talking point. And now you're out a rematch, because I think the odds of a second debate are directly correlated as a parlay into how Joe Biden performs on Tuesday. If he comes out of there feeling like he performed well, I think he's walking off and not coming back. That's what I think. Todd?
We talked about this earlier this week. It would be foolish for Republicans not to have confirmation hearings because of what they know the left will do. But I think there's a 1 in 3 chance. I saw somebody talking about it. I don't think it's 50-50 likely, but I think there's a 1 in 3 chance that the Democrats will say we are going to play no role in these confirmation hearings because they know they can't help themselves. Yeah. But this helps them reframe.
They're going to just say no?
Yes. I think there's a 1 in 3 chance that they're the ones who boycott the hearings.
All right. Denise, what do you think?
You're going to see a ginning up of the war on women rhetoric all through October, and there's going to be all kinds of things that you're going to see, probably some more sex scandals. You're going to see protests by women. You're going to see all kinds of drama in the streets, literally, about women and the threat to women and the threat that Trump is to women and the threat that Barrett is to women and Republicans in general. They're going to expect an extinction of womankind after October is over.
Totally agree with that. Their coalition, They never made any grounds with non-college graduate whites. They never really made up any ground from the Hillary coalition at all. They're losing ground in their Hispanic turnout within their own coalition. So right now, I mean, the Democratic coalition is totally and wholly dependent on white suburban women. They have to maintain the ground, the gains they made with them in the 2018 midterms to be able to win on November the 3rd. If that gets eroded, they cannot win. And so since they can't get those women on the issues, because most of them, they don't agree with them on the issues, actually, they're going to have to do what you just articulated, Denise. I completely agree. All right, my prediction, the Detroit Lions are going to beat the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday. And here's why. Because they almost never win in Arizona when they're actually good, number one. But number two, if they lose here, the season is officially over at 0-3. Everyone's fired. The fan base is like, this sucks, but at least we know and has peace, that knows how the season ends and there's a new era to come and has something to look forward to. The Lions cosmically cannot permit that. All right. They don't permit their fans to go or to die in peace. So they will win here to cruelly draw us back in once more. Because the only thing the Lions, L-I-E, the only thing I like better than Jimmy kicking us fans once is getting to do it in the same season twice. So that's going down on Sunday. That's my prediction. Just to draw you back in.
Yeah, well,
I know you love it, Todd. I know
the only thing more profound than the craziness of 2020 is Lions craziness every day, every year.
Denise, always good to see you. Thanks for joining us, okay? Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You bet. We've got Feedback Friday coming your way. That means I should probably go get the feedback and find out what we're going to be talking about.
Did you pull an errand?
I just realized, crap, we got Feedback Friday. I hope I have it teed up and ready to go. Dang it. Feedback Friday is something will occur in a moment.
Your Mount Rushmore of favorite feedback emails.
Nice. That's coming your way next. Stay tuned. Hey, we're back with Hour 2, live and on demand here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Boy, you should have heard that conversation during the top of the hour.
But you never will.
You never will. Never will. Yeah.
Our memoirs 40 years from now.
Yeah. Maybe when some of the people that we were just discussing are no longer with us, we can share that conversation with you. 888-900-3393 is the number. That's 888-900-3393. Steve at stevedeace.com is the email address. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Steve Deace Show. Over on Parler at Steve Deace. Check out our new YouTube channel, youtube.com/Steve Deace. And again, the last name is Deace. If you're a podcast listener, bless your heart. We love you every bit as much as we love everybody that tunes into this show, no matter how they do so each day. But for you, we ask two things of you, please. Hit that subscribe button wherever you podcast us from. Leave us a 5-star review if you haven't done it already. Heck, if you had, leave some more. Because the more of those two things that happen, the more the show grows. And we want to thank each and every one of you that has done those two things for us already. Let's get to some feedback. Friday brought to you by Gabby Insurance. You know, when you've had the same car insurance or homeowners insurance for years, you kind of get trapped into paying your premiums and not even thinking about it. You're just used to budgeting it. You know what the number is. You write the check or have it deducted out of your account and move on. That really makes it easy, though, to overpay and you don't even realize it. So I went on with Gabby Insurance to find out, hey, what rates are we looking at with our homeowners and our auto insurance? You know what ended up happening is it recommended we actually have the plans with the people that we already had. See, that's kind of cool. That if you're already doing the best you can do with your current insurance rating and where you're at in the market and what your budget is and what you need covered, Gabby will tell you that too. All right. But if there is a way for you to save money, Gabby does a great job with that as well. They save their customers a ton of money by helping you find the lowest rates that are out there. In fact, Gabby customers save on average $825 per year. So If you're looking for more information, you can check your rate for free right now. And there's no obligation. Takes just a few minutes. And you can stop overpaying on your car and homeowner's insurance if you want to take the next step. Go to Gabi.com. It's Gabi for Gabi. Gabi.com/Deace. That's Gabi.com/Deace. All right, let's get to it. Some Feedback Friday. You guys ready to go?
You bet.
This is from Beth Carter, who writes, I still don't understand why Barr, that's the Attorney General Barr, has not locked anyone up yet for their crimes that they did. If he would lock them all up, well, maybe, the rest of the country, we'd be sailing free. With all the Russian hoax and the Epstein case, why aren't those people in jail? It's all so maddening. I mean, there was a big story yesterday that broke. I think it was our friends over at the Federalist that broke this story. And there was a genius take, by the way, on this, on a separate issue. But it's the same story, different branch of the same tree. That's the Flynn story. Molly Hemingway over at the Federalist tweeted this out a little while ago, and it's a brilliant take. And she said, the irony here is the federal judge in D.C. who is doing his best to play hanging judge to Flynn and just create his own law in real whole cloth from the bench. By him doing that, the Flynn attorneys had already won this case. They were going to walk away. Hey, we're done. Got it. Yeah, the truth came out. Our candidate was railroaded, and time to drop the charges as the feds suggested, and let's all just move on. But because the partisan judge there in D.C. did not want to do that, and pushed this case, and now his ruling has been appealed, and more appeals, more discovery. And one of the bombshells that came out yesterday about this entire story only happened because the judge in D.C. would not follow precedent and go ahead and allow the charges to be dropped months ago against Flynn, but pushed the matter to try to get him prosecuted, even though the feds are walking away from the case. And that is what ended up revealing one of the big bombshells that came out yesterday about and there were, the whole thing about what happened with Flynn, where the origin of the Steele dossier was, and who was the individual who had a very problematic criminal record or suspected one in his own right. And a lot of this only came out because they just didn't want to follow the law and let Flynn walk away and kept pushing it. Well, that means we got to push for more discovery to defend our client.
So this is the second time this week that I think I will be making some kind of defense, at least devil's advocate offense of Bill Barr. Here's the thing. Steve's right about that, but it's the chaos worked in our direction. That's basically what you said just now. Now, and oftentimes
the law of unintended consequences did maybe.
Yes. Yeah. And that often happens with progressivism because it's unsustainable. But while you wait for those moments, it just destroys people's lives. And here's the thing. Assume you're being lied to is our mantra. And we know what we think about journalism. I mean, even if you just pick one as an example, there is no smoking gun. None that the American press will just take and it's like, you're right, you got him. I see the body, I see it all right there, but you're a bigot and you whatever. That's the problem. Why? It has a lot to do with that because there simply is nothing but narrative with the progressive press, and they will manage to hang Bill Barr for doing it to anybody somehow, some way. Is it still worth doing? I think the three of us all agree to some extent. Yeah, probably, but there's just no getting around that fact. The press is that ruthless and nasty. You have to assume you're being lied to.
That's a great point you just made, because you hear sometimes when we get on Trump or Barr, do something about these people. We'll hear sometimes from, Trump loyalists in our audience, what are they supposed to do? Not to mention, this stuff always just ends up collapsing on its own once the truth comes out. We hear that argument quite a bit. Mm-hmm. That does happen from a narrative standpoint. That does occur, right? Okay. But here's the thing you have to consider is the human cost of this. We're not justifying the fact that General Flynn appears to have lost his job as national security advisor because he lied to the vice president of the United States. That's a separate issue from a criminal proceeding. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's separate from the criminal aspect of what's going on here. Separate why he lost his job in the West Wing to what's going on in a court of law for a moment. And if you look at what's going on in a court of law, look at the price he and his family have paid these last few years over this scam. The human toll here. Who's the next Carter Page?
Right.
Is it you? Is it me? Who's the next one? Who's the next one who's got to rack up a bunch of billable hours for high-priced attorneys in the Beltway that they can't afford right now over stuff like this, right?
Well, the Federalists, for example, they came out clean on the other side just a few weeks ago, a month ago, but they got targeted, right? I mean, there's no way that you are just look at there's good journalism. You've saved the country for us all in the name of the truth, and we'll follow the truth wherever. No, they don't believe that.
And your point that you made a minute ago too, on doubling down on how they double down on narrative. We went right from Robert Mueller, no Russian collusion to, well, what about this 27-minute Ukrainian phone call? We'll just move on to the next one. There must be discipline, folks. There must be discipline. And if people are not held accountable, because just like, hey, who's the next Carter Page? Who's the next General Flynn? We want, the next time they hatch these kinds of schemes, we want them to be saying, hey, who's the next McCabe?
I really want to do this?
Exactly. Who was that rebel? Who was the chick that was the Bernie Sanders leaker that got let away? What was her crazy?
Reality winner.
Yes. Who's the next? Do I want to be the next reality winner? Do I want to be the next Andrew McCabe? Do I want to be the next Peter Strzok? You know what I'm saying?
Because you will be.
Because you will be. But right now, your answer to that question is, yeah, I got a book deal. I get on cable news every night. I'm going to get a massive social media following for my next book deal. You know what I'm saying? There's no penalty for this now.
Right.
There's only a reward. So yeah, I wouldn't mind being the next Andrew McCabe. I wouldn't mind being the next Jim Comey. I literally lost Hillary Clinton the last election and then got welcomed on The View open arms to make sure I had a book on the New York Times bestseller list by the exact same people I just screwed in the last election. I'll take that offer. Right now, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of grifters right now thinking to themselves, I'm your Huckleberry, man. Hey, what's the next coup attempt here? I'm in. I got mouths to feed. We've incentivized this in the other direction. So yeah, months, years later, like with the Mueller probe, the political narrative falls apart and the truth comes out. But what is the human toll and cost for the people caught in the web of this in the meantime? And then secondarily, what we are incentivizing them just to keep coming up with these schemes, these harebrained schemes and narratives all the time, because there's no penalty to be paid for when that narrative collapses and the truth comes out.
Yep. Got it.
All right, let's go to the next one. This is from Jessica. How much do you or Todd over there in the free state of Iowa, how much do you guys have your kids wear face diapers? I'm all in on I'm not going to do that. And I have been from the get-go, refusing to comply as often as possible. But I live in the People's Republic of Michigan. And while I have thought on several occasions of moving, all our family is here. And bottom line, the governor is temporary. And the things we love about this area will still be here when she's gone. And Michigan is purple enough that I don't anticipate this being a nightmare forever. So the problem I have, though, is that for my kids, fall activities have started. Almost everything we do normally is an option, but now the face diaper is the price of admission. I don't make my kids wear masks anywhere, and nobody ever questions it, but I don't have a choice for some of these activities, and I can't decide if I should say no on principle and withdraw, or put up and shut up, or let them have some say in it, like the kids. I hate justifying it, well, it's just a half-hour class, but I also can't quite discern if I'm just being stubborn. Fortunately, my kids don't seem to be bothered by the masks nearly as much as I am, but still, I have to decide now if I should continue to let them go with soccer, since apparently the geniuses in our state capital have access to data that supersedes the guidance of the CDC, the WHO, Cleveland Clinic, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services to not wear masks during physical activity. You want to tackle this one first for Jessica?
Yeah.
I've gotten a few emails like this, by the way, on this topic.
Listen, I can't give you an answer that you can just like write down as a cheat sheet for yourself that's unambiguously the same for you in Michigan as it is for me here. Listen, my to go to school, which my 4 daughters do, they have to wear a mask. My particular school district has not been in any way draconian as far as I can tell. I mean, I think let's all get through this together. So that part's been good. outside, we never ever wear masks. And if anybody told us to, I would absolutely not do it, and under any circumstances. Inside, at the grocery store, when my wife and I go, they asked, I even wear a mask then. And that's mostly for my wife, who also thinks it's really dumb, but she's the opposite of me. She doesn't want to fight all the time. So I just do it for her because I love her. That's my thing. And Steve's going to have his, Aaron's going to have his. There's other store. If I walk into Home Depot at this point, I'm not trying to pick a fight with you specifically, Home Depot, but if I'm just by myself and it says wear a mask, I probably won't just wear a mask until they tell me to. If somebody says, okay, fine, I will then too. I'm not going all Paul Revere there in the middle of. So I don't know. That's me. That's the best I can tell you right now. It's brutal there under Karen Whitmer up there. And so you just have to call your own shots. But ultimately, serve your kids the most. Let them see courage. Don't let them see weakness. There's you have to find a happy medium. Sometimes you explain that to them. But as I walked through the mall, this mall near Steve's house, just a couple weeks ago with my 10-year-old daughter, where almost everybody inside that mall was wearing a mask, and we weren't. And I just said, no, not in here, sweetie. And I explained to her, listen, these people aren't really afraid of the virus. Some of them are, but most of them are afraid of what other people think of them. And that's the thing that you can't let live inside your children.
That last part especially is well put. To me, this whole debate comes down to a simple question. Or a simple statement, maybe. And I'm getting a lot of questions on this topic. And I think they all have the same answer. The masks will go away when you and I decide we're no longer tolerating wearing them, and not a moment sooner than that. They're never going to voluntarily go away. In some places, that'll happen. Some places down south, some counties, Red County in California, even in a blue state like that, on a micro level, they will go away in some places officially. But on the macro level, the masks aren't going away until you and I make them go away. And the reason for that is, it goes back to what I told you months ago. And I warned everybody about what the mask was going to be. I mean, has the mask become the religious talisman? All the things you just mentioned. Has it become a virtue signaling trophy iconography that I wear this and it gives me the power of social acceptance, right? Yes. That tells us what the mask has become, but it doesn't tell us what the mask is or where the mask began. The mask is the cost of that the political system is demanding you pay in order to get your life back. Because it does two things for the system. Number one, if cases spike or there's a second wave, it allows them to absolve themselves of responsibility. Because it means either you didn't wear the mask or enough of you didn't wear the mask. So it's your fault, not ours, right? And if cases never spike again and there's not a second wave, then they get to say, we saved you because of the mask. So it gives the political system what it wants. All the benefit with zero accountability. That's the first part. The other part is the system doesn't just admit it was wrong whole cloth about something unless it's forced to, and it usually takes a gun to force them to do that, okay? No, so the mask is, hey, it may not be as bad as we had feared, but it's still pretty bad, so we're still saving you, and if you want your country back, wear a mask. It's the way for the system, by covering your face, you help the political system save its face. That's what the mask is. And I told you that months ago, that the mask would be, did I not say, would be the cost of admission to getting your country back, because team lockdown, which is most of government, frankly, at all levels, wasn't walking away from the table with nothing. They weren't walking away empty-handed. They had to come away from the table of lockdown with something, some alm. And this is it. The mask is it. The mask is the cost of opening things back up.
And, even though we paid that toll, though, the next thing that happens, election, no matter how the election goes, then right around the election, though, you're getting colder, sports are moving inside. So this is going to go on throughout the winter, the flu bugaboo that ever.
Yep.
We're not going to get to that point en masse when people start picking that fight, I don't think, until the spring.
That brings me to where I was going to go next. The masks won't go away until we refuse to wear them and make them go away. But then the question becomes, is this the time to do that or not? Because here's what I would say. And all along, I've told you the truth the best that I can with the best research and data that I can do. The reason I'm not anti-mask. I don't believe the masks work. The science shows they don't work. But there is a caveat. We are, even though it was here all of last winter, it wasn't also as acute and widespread all of last winter at the exact same time, meaning all over the country. We haven't gone through a season where most of the country is going to be indoors with this thing percolating. And we know that it's percolating. An argument could be made, if I'm being as fair as I can possibly be, to go to the timetable that you just talked about, Todd. An argument could be made that this is not the time to go to war over masks. Now, let me define what I mean by that. What that means and doesn't mean. That doesn't mean to roll over. That doesn't mean to just wear one everywhere you go now. That doesn't mean to put up with junk science and not push back on it when you're presented with it. That's not what I'm talking about. Strategically, though, an argument could be made that now is not the time to holistically, systemically, everywhere, attempt to wage war on the mask. Because there may be a lot of people right now that in 6 months would, after they've gone through a winter and seen for themselves what this looks like on a seasonal basis, that you can ask them questions like, hey, are you going to get a flu shot? Well, yeah, of course. Why? Aren't you wearing a mask? I mean, if the mask is more safe from COVID, it saves you from COVID more than a vaccine would, as CDC Director Redfield said last week. And if we're wearing masks to stop us giving COVID to other people, the microbe that carries the COVID virus is smaller than the microbe that carries the flu virus. If you're wearing a mask, why are you getting a flu shot then? Shouldn't need a flu shot if you're wearing a mask. See what I'm saying? Yeah. We have time this winter to have these kinds of conversations so that when we're back outdoors again in the spring, again, I'm theorizing strategically. Because we are, let me state this unequivocally, we're going to have to do this, I believe. You'll get some people like a DeSantis in Florida who lifted all their restrictions today. In the middle of our show, he ended all of their COVID restrictions today. And he's allowing local communities to do it, but there's pretty strict standards of what they have to get state approval from before they implement it. They can't just go off willy-nilly and say in Miami-Dade or Broward County, we're a bunch of lefties here, stay in your homes forever. They can't do that, okay? You're going to get a few people that will do that. A Kristi Noem, right? Maybe our own governor here, okay, who's been fairly good on this issue for the last few months. There'll be isolated cases between now and next spring where people are going to say, we're going to have enough of the masks. But I'm just speaking strategically. I think the likelihood of success of a massive pushback against masks being successful this fall compared to next spring is much higher next spring. Once the next group of people who hate wearing the masks but aren't sure if they don't work yet, and they get to go through an entire winter and experience this on a seasonality basis in real time themselves. And then they're going to have, after being cooped up all winter, they're going to want to be outside. Now it's 75 degrees. I got to wear a damn mask at the golf course. I think there's a whole other layer of support we can get to successfully storm the mask Bastille if we wait until March or April of next year than if we do it right now. That's just a strategic analysis.
Yeah, as much as it sucks, you have got to take in the very fragile Karen-esque psychology that is just pervasive out there. You have to take it into your equation.
At least into your strategic equation.
Yes, that's it.
We're not telling, and like what my buddy Gabe Wrench did in his church in Idaho. We're all, if folks want to go and do that, dude, I wrote my column about the Blaze about that today. I will support all of you to do that. But the question Jessica asked us was, when is it time for us on a macro level to say no? I think it's a little early yet. If you were just asking me my strategic analysis. Now, if any of you want to email me and say, hey, Steve, we're just going to say we're done with this. You know what I'm going to tell you? God bless you. Everyone, go for it. Okay. That's a separate question, though, than if you're asking me for us systemically, when should we launch the offensive against the masks? I think it's a little early for that yet.
Yeah. Love your principles, but it's, I'm principally against the riots and the burning down of these cities. It's one thing for me to have a weapon to defend myself in case they come to my doorstep. It is another thing, and if you want to, you can, but to walk right into the middle of the chaos and principally say, when you know the police aren't going to have your back, you might take some flack. It might not go well. You have to take into account you're dealing with insane people, and we are. Regarding this virus, this has driven people to madness.
I mean, why was today a good day for Ron DeSantis to do this? Tomorrow's the Florida State-Miami game. All right, one of the biggest sporting events in his state every year. But hospitalizations are down 76% in Florida.
Is that a lot?
Yeah, that's a lot. Okay. Now, was the infection fatality rate for COVID-19 back in July 0.03? Yes, because that's what it is right now. Okay. 0.03 is what it is. That's the infection fatality rate. It was 0.03 in July too, right? But politically, is Ron DeSantis in a better position today with a 76% increase in decrease in hospitalizations to cut the umbilical cord and all of this than he would have been if he stood up on July 25th when they had about a 20% increase in hospitalizations, which is big, not nearly what was being reported, but still that matters, right?
Yes.
Okay. So July 25th, would he have been right to end restrictions on July 25th? Would he have been principally right?
Of course.
Of course. Politically, though, could you argue that might not have been the best moment to run out there in front of a firing squad and do so?
It must be considered.
You at least have to consider it. Again,
can I interject? It's the same reason, again, why the lefty governor in Minnesota, today they announced that they're no longer going to be tallying and releasing to the public the number of hospitalizations from COVID in their state. Now, why would you do that? Well, maybe if you wanted to continue to lie about the reasons for the shutdown and you just wanted to stay shut down for EVSYO, that's why you'd do that.
That's exactly why. Yes. Okay. Now, here's the other thing, though, I can tell you. If there's enough Gabe Wrenches of y'all out there that just decide, well, we've had enough, then that can just totally take my analysis and timetable and just flush it down the toilet. I could be dead wrong that this thing could spark right now. But
you're still in the same reasoning. It's situational.
Yep. And I'll change my analysis if it shows we've got the momentum. I'm going to say, hey, now's the time, man, hop on board. But that's just my analysis of where we stand right now. I also would not totally rule out that masks could not be effective this winter when we're all confined to these indoor spaces in these climate controlled environments, which this virus thrives in. I wouldn't rule that out. I don't think it's likely. I wouldn't bet on it. Okay. But I also wouldn't rule it out. I wouldn't, because I'm not going to do what the people we criticize are doing. I don't like the masks. I view them. I don't like the politics of the mask, I should say. And so because I see it as religious idolatry. I see this as the pan idol of our time. I have almost a religious zeal to want to just push back on it, not just on the basis of that. Okay, but then that might blind me to data or that changes later on. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So we haven't been through a winter with this yet. Well, we have, but not with it as acute now as it was here earlier in several places in the winter of 2019 or 2019 into 2020, but it wasn't as widespread as it is right now. So there's a chance that with masses of populations indoors and not outside, that the masks could be some form of a successful mitigation effort in the wintertime. I don't think that's likely, but I wouldn't rule it out either. And there's only one way to find out, and that's to live through a wintertime and find out for ourselves. I mean, I've always been open to the possibility. Dude, I hoped they worked. I said back in March, why don't we just not shut the country down and wear masks? But the same people right now that are convinced the masks that don't work, told people like me that suggested that back in March, I was a fool and an idiot. We got to shut the country down. So there you go. Cindy says, my daughter attends the University of Georgia. She's been fighting the mask mandate since day one. The hate is unbelievable. She just received this notice from the university. Voluntary compliance is the new term. Not only are these college students being reprimanded for being social, they are being taught that it is bad to interact, and now it's time to turn your fellow citizens in if they do, and all over a virus. Yes, see? This is the kind of thing, too, that can change people's opinions on this when the time, that creates when the time is right, and people are like, dude, I did this with my kid last fall, and we weren't sure how bad the virus is. We're not doing this at university this fall. We're not doing this in 2021. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. There's going to be a lot more people that are going to say that next year than are saying it right now. Because there's the people that principally don't buy into it. Next year, there's going to be the people that instinctively don't. Just instinctively are just tired of the entire dog and pony show, cockamamie BS, and just want to move on with their lives, right? Yeah. We can grab all those people and then just run the system over. That's kind of the analysis that I'm giving.
Yeah, and this one's going to be yet another example of pile of ashes that did not happen anywhere.
I think our buddy, well, we've never met him. He's my Twitter buddy, Andrew Boston, the Brown University epidemiologist. I think he's up to 40,000 positives on college campuses now, with exactly 2 hospitalizations out of 40,000. No deaths. Because he's charting this in all these schools with their own data. Over 40,000 positives on American college campuses, 2 total hospitalizations, 0 deaths out of 40,000. More in a moment. All right, back here again on the Steve Deace Show, live and on demand here on Blaze TV. People do a lot of good things for their dogs. Walking the dog is good. Running with the dog is good. Crazy, but good. Okay? But you know what is good as well? Making sure that your dog has the nutrients it needs, the vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, probiotics, omega oils. See, a lot of the food that we buy our pets today at stores, just like a lot of the food that we're buying for ourselves today at stores, is just stripped of all of that good stuff. It's sterilized because leaving that in there makes the food spoil faster. They want it to last on the shelf longer for mass production and consumption. That's why we take supplements these days, and that's where Rough Greens VitaSmart comes in. It's not a new dog food, but it's a supplement for the food your dog already loves. It's just a powder that you sprinkle and mix in with your pet's food. They'll go crazy for it. At least our dog Cap loves the taste of this stuff, and it puts all the good stuff back in their food that's missing from it right now. And right now, you can take the Rough Greens 14-day Jumpstart Bag Challenge for just $14.95 and see if you don't see the difference in your dog in 2 weeks or less. Just go to roughgreens.com/blaze. That's RUFF for roughgreens.com/blaze. Let's get back to some Feedback Friday. This is from Jeff Whitaker, who says, I've never missed your show since you've been on the Blaze. Keep on keeping on. But I have a question, thought experiment for you. What do you think the course of events would be if the SARS-CoV-2 COVID-19 outbreak happened in January of 2016, and Obama touted hydroxychloroquine and zinc as a possible cure? Would he have won a second Nobel Peace Prize for medicine? Well, we already have an answer to that. Didier Raoult was considered, or is it Didier or Didier?
It's Didier.
Didier Raoult, until March 12th of this year, had been for the last several years considered the leading infectious disease expert on this entire planet. And when he originally came out with his recommendations of hydroxychloroquine and zinc as a combined early onset remedy for COVID-19, meaning if you're walking in if you walk in and you can't breathe to an ICU and they got to put you on a ventilator right away, Didier was not suggesting just inject hydroxychloroquine and he'll just send him home for the night. But meaning if you had an early onset group of symptoms that were emerging in your physiological profile, this was an effective pushback if the symptoms were caught early enough. Or even it was suggested, even if you just test positive, but you're in a risk group, take it preventatively. Because we already know the drug is safe because it's been FDA certified since the 1950s, right? And the world cheered this information. Much of the medical community cheered it. And you didn't hear about this in January and February because the vast majority of you watching this are not in any kind of risk group for COVID-19. So it's the same reason a lot of you don't hear what the latest advances in Crohn's disease or irritable bowel disease, or just pick something else, because the majority of you don't get that. And then on March 12th at a White House coronavirus task force briefing, the President of the United States, unfortunately for Didier Riault, happened to mention his findings and research is very promising. And that's when Orange Man Bad kicked in. And Didier Riault has been fighting for his reputation in some sectors of his own peer group ever since. So that's your answer. Yes. Absolutely, the answer is yes.
And this isn't just a hydroxychloroquine question. If Barack Obama had advised Thanos' snap as the way to confront this, he would have been applauded by the world medical community. I mean, whatever he said, whatever he did.
That's the level of tribalism that is involved here.
Yes.
This is why they're so angry at Sweden. Because the leading nations in the world all got together, the leading Western nations in the world all got together in March and made the determination to lock down. Except one. And the problem with Sweden not doing so is it provided us in real time a control group to see if this works.
And now you're seeing classical bias in terms of the media. Mm-hmm. It's just craven and out in the open with a lot of things, but they're just doing what they just pretending Sweden doesn't exist, which is what they've done with a lot of stories. They've just they don't talk about them. You and I growing up within the Register and others. Now we know that is metamorphosized, which is why you changed your principle on what fake news is or not. Mm-hmm. But with Sweden, they're just, for the most part, they're just Sweden. What Sweden? We never heard of Sweden. That's what they're doing. That's memory hole.
That's exactly right. Yes. And that's why they're still very angry at it, because the lack of a second wave indicates herd immunity. By the way, have you noticed who's arguing about herd immunity? Like no one in any power or authority on the right or in this administration is advocating for a natural herd immunity strategy. Have you noticed this?
Yes.
This is all negative arguing from the left. And here's the reason why. Because if there's never a second wave in Sweden, then it's because they reached herd immunity and all of their arguments are gone. So they're having this argument now before that happens, or before it doesn't happen, if that is the case.
And can I say one thing about that? Because I've been thinking, it's one thing we don't know, and you're big on that. We don't know all of, at least I don't. I don't know all of Sweden's motives. When we talk about herd immunity, sure, we're talking about how this thing actually works. Now, it's one thing to say this works, and it's another thing to say right out of the gate, we don't care who lives, we don't care who dies, we're not just going to try to protect anybody, we're just going to let it go through.
Right, which is how this is being presented.
Right, that's not what the beginning in March, Steve and I were talking about off air and on air, about the heroic measures that this country could rally around to protect the elderly. No one's not saying try.
Totally
and I don't know, maybe Sweden, and listen, I'll play devil's advocate. Listen, you get to a certain place when you simply are that craven about the dignity of human existence. It's possible that certain people within the Swedish community, we know how that there's a very pagan progressive society there.
It's the most secular country in Europe.
Maybe they didn't care. That would be a terrible thing.
Yeah.
That's a separate conversation.
That's a separate argument then, though. I mean, because you're pointing out, hey, because we don't live there. We don't know the motivations of what's at the heart of why they did what they did. And it could have been the wrong motivation. And they just stumbled into old time religion when it comes to what science was and what we understood about virology prior to old man bad. And they didn't intentionally do this. They just acted on their own impulses and ended up here.
Yeah.
Meaning
just like New York. It seems New York ended up there too.
But what I think that scenario would reinforce the science all the more, though. Yeah. Because you're going back to natural law here. Where did the idea of herd immunity come from? How did we, what did we do? It's a scriptural notion. It's like right out of Leviticus, how we handled outbreaks, what God said, who to quarantine and who to not, and why. That's where all that stuff came from. And what it would kind of show is that the old magic, no matter how much new magic we try to conjure up here, even if Sweden had the worst of motivations, you know what? We are the apex of hedonistic progressive Europe. We really don't want to shut down our way of life for a bunch of old people that we think are going to die anyway and won't be there for the next Maypole parade next spring. And we like in the movie Midsummer, which takes place in Sweden, we just throw them over the cliff when they reach a certain age and they're no good anymore. Who knows if those were their motivations? Right. And they might have been. But if it were, then they couldn't still help but stumble into the actual science of how the world works and was created anyway. Likewise, if our motivations were to protect all these people and do everything we could, and we still end up with about the same death rate Sweden has, that still then all we both did, regardless of opposite or the same motivations, all we both did was prove that that the laws of nature and nature's God are still in effect, no matter how much technology we come up with, no matter how many vaccines we invent, therapeutics we conjure, wishes we have, we can't escape the way the world
Isn't that what science is supposed to be? It just is.
Science is supposed to seek, is supposed to be observable truth in action. That's what it's supposed to be. Yeah. Now it's kind of magic.
It said we wish cast.
Yes. JD says, unlike elections past, there's been an exponential increase in downtime for individuals. With this virus lockdown, the newly eligible voters. Oh, wait, did I skip the first 3 paragraphs of his email? I did. My bad. Let me go to the beginning. My name is JD and I'm 25 years old. I'm emailing to inquire whether or not you believe we on the right are estimating the numbers of newly eligible voters that will vote this year. It would seem in election cycles past that newly eligible voters did not turn out at the same rates as their older counterparts. In 2016, only 46% of eligible voters between ages 18 and 29 voted. I think we could see a significant swing in that percentage come November for 2 reasons: coronavirus and social activism. My wife is 21 and many of our friends will be voting for the first time. We are surrounded by people in this voting block. It would seem coronavirus kept much of this age group indoors for months on end. When indoors, everyone turns to being on their phones and browsing social media, which is Gen Z's authoritative news source. As an avid social media user myself, I see on a daily basis the leftist propaganda they are constantly exposed to. When the new wave of social justice protesting kicked off in June, I saw an astonishing number of my friends just glom onto the BLM movement. And this, coupled with the anti-Trump rhetoric surrounding the virus, has me deeply concerned. Unlike elections past, there has been an exponential increase in downtime for these individuals. With this virus lockdown, the newly eligible voters have been gradually turned into anti-Trump activists and with very little knowledge of real-world situations or truth. Overall, we could be looking at millions of votes in prior elections would not have been mobilized, but in 2020 have had nothing better to do except be passively or in some cases actively mobilized through the brainwashing of the left. Please tell me I'm wrong. That's from JD. Aaron, is this your generation or the generation behind you? No, this is your generation.
Yeah.
All right, so what do you think?
I would assent to his observations. There's people that I've seen over the last 5 or 6 months of my age group, people that I went to college with. Mind you, this was a private Christian liberal arts college whose Bible department is still amazing. But a private Christian liberal arts college, people who I never saw post anything social activism or political before on social media. They are complete and utter social justice warriors. It's like, at least that's what you would that's what you would deduce from their social media history. So I think the energy at least has picked up. at least has picked up. It can't be the same. Now, remember back in 2016, we were coming off the heels of Ferguson. We had isn't that when we got the pink hats? Do you remember those?
Yep.
As well? That whole year, maybe that was right after Trump was elected. There was a lot of stuff going on there. There's still the running joke of this is the 200th and the 50th month of 2016, whatever that is now.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of stuff happening then that was really grabbing people's attention, obviously. But at least anecdotally, these are just anecdotal observations from JD and myself. I have seen that pick up amongst my age group, and it's like, for whatever reason, the combination of being locked inside and the George Floyd thing happening at one point, it's just like programming kicked in. We're going to go full SJW right now. And at least that's what I've seen anyway.
Okay.
I haven't seen it go. I haven't seen it swing the opposite direction at all. Like, I haven't seen, hey, you know what? Now that I've been paying it more attention, Trump's doing a pretty good job here.
Right.
I haven't really seen that.
So what you're telling me is we just have to oppose mail-in voting then with all of our lives, because this ain't you and I's first rodeo with the young vote is going to sway the election.
Right.
How many times have we heard this in our lifetimes? It never happens. These people never show up to vote en masse. They don't. But if you made it really easy for them, right? They could just do it online or mail in.
A couple of times.
Yeah, then I could see that working itself out. But let me help you guys, though, with one historical analogy. And maybe it doesn't play, I don't know. But remember, from 1967, the Summer of Love, to 1970, that was Kent State, right? Was 1970? From 1967 to 1970, we had the greatest explosion of youth activism and countercultural revolution in the history of this country until probably right now, okay? And I would argue at that time it was even more than it is now because the country had never seen anything like that before, so it just blew people's minds, right? Everything changed. Clothes, dress, hair,
chromosomes,
mores. Now that would come later, okay? But everything changed with this counterculture. The first presidential election, after that counterculture was fully embedded and established within the American mainstream, Richard Nixon named the score against George McGovern in 1972. See what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So I would just say this isn't the first time that this has been hinted at or suspected, and yeah, they didn't have social media, but they had Woodstock. They had Haight-Ashbury. They had, campus protest culture, ways of connecting. They had their own subculture, and they took over a major American political party at that time, actually. And the first time we had an election with this fully embedded in the American mainstream, they got mollywopped. So just consider that.
Oh, and I do when I talk about the coming.
That's why you make that analogy recently, because
yeah.
you see a parallel. Now, the country's further to the left holistically than it was in 1972, right? Social media does present an opportunity to consistently keep groups of people that large engaged and mobilized. So I don't think situationally it's necessarily the same. But we have had a historical precedent where we were told that in the very next election, that youthful uprising of counterculturalism was going to destroy the mainstream. And the mainstream struck back with a vengeance.
Well, yeah, and this is somewhat Hegelian. This is how thesis, antithesis, synthesis.
We haven't made a Hegelian dialectic reference. We used to make those on this show all the time. It's been too long since we brought that up.
It's kind of what's. I mean, all those people. The crazy gets all the press and the attention, but normal life, even if it's drifted more to the left, normal life oftentimes just is like, okay, this has gone on long enough, and the squares just say, let's just, no, I can meet you so far, but. Even though it's not going to be intense like Jean-Luc Picard, it's going to be here and no further.
At the very least, it means you got to oppose all these ballot stuffing initiatives at the very least. Hey, great stuff. We're going to stick around and do overtime for our Blaze TV subscribers at blazetv.com/Deace. For the rest of you, we're going to see you again on Monday. Have a great weekend. Until then, John 3:17.